Have you ever felt the sting of silence from someone you cared deeply about? Maybe it wasn't anger or a fight that caused it. Maybe it was just nothing. No calls, no texts, no explanation, just an empty space that makes your heart ache and your mind spin. Have you ever wondered what really happens in that moment? And more importantly, how you should respond? Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to this channel and like this video, because what you're about to learn could change the way you approach love and relationships forever. Stick with me through this video, because each lesson builds on the last, and by the end, you'll see the real game begins the moment contact stops. Let me take you on a journey through 10 Marcus Aurelius suggestions, powerful Stoic strategies that teach you how to handle silence, how to regain control, and how to turn absence into an opportunity for growth, clarity, and even deeper love. 1. Accept the silence without panic. Have you ever experienced that heart-stopping moment when someone you care about goes silent? I remember the first time it happened to me. She hadn't replied to my message, and the minutes felt like hours. My chest tightened, my mind raced, and I felt an urgent need to reach out, to fix the silence, to regain the connection. I was convinced that if I didn't act, I would lose her forever. Then I remembered Marcus Aurelius's wisdom. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That was a turning point. I realized the silence itself wasn't a threat. It was my reaction to it that caused the pain. By accepting the silence without panic, I could reclaim control over my emotions. I allowed myself to feel the longing and the worry, but refused to let them dictate my actions. Now I want you to pause and reflect. Have you ever felt your heart race because of unanswered messages? Can you imagine responding with calm instead of panic? When you accept silence without fear, it stops being a punishment and becomes a space for patience, reflection, and inner strength, transforming absence into your first step toward emotional mastery. Reflect on what you truly want. When the silence started, I felt lost. Every day I would scroll through old messages, replay our conversations in my head, and think about the laughter we shared, the nights we stayed awake talking about dreams, fears, and everything in between. It was intoxicating and painful all at once. I wanted her back, not just physically, but emotionally. I wanted the comfort, the warmth, the sense of being understood. Then I paused and asked myself, what do I truly want from this relationship? Was it her presence, or was it the idea of her? Marcus Aurelius said, look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig. I started reflecting on my own desires. I remembered the moments that made me feel truly alive, the way she smiled when I made her laugh, the way she trusted me with her fears. But I also realized I wanted respect, reciprocity, and honesty, not just fleeting attention or validation. Now I want you to pause and think, can you separate your longing for someone from the love you truly deserve? Think about the memories, the love, the connection. What do they really reveal about your heart's deepest desires? When you reflect deeply, the silence stops feeling like a void and starts feeling like a mirror, showing you exactly what you want and what you truly deserve. 3. Stop the obsessive mind spiral. Have you ever found yourself trapped in a loop of thoughts about someone you love? I know I have. When she stopped contacting me, my mind refused to rest. I replayed our conversations over and over, analyzing every word, every pause, every emoji. I imagined scenarios where she had moved on or forgotten me. My thoughts became a prison and I couldn't find an exit. Then I remembered Marcus Aurelius. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. I realized the obsessive spiral wasn't caused by her. It was my own mind. I couldn't control her actions, but I could control my response. So I started catching myself in the act of spiraling. Each time my thoughts ran wild, I paused, breathed, and reminded myself, this is outside my control. My peace is inside my control. Now I want you to ask yourself, Have you ever felt trapped by your own thoughts about someone you love? That restless mind that refuses to stop replaying memories. What if you could step out of it and watch it pass without letting it control you? When you stop the obsessive spiral, silence becomes a space for calm, clarity, and emotional strength, rather than a source of torment. 6. Reframe the silence as power. When she stopped contacting me, at first I felt powerless. Each unanswered message, each day without a word, made me feel small, invisible, and at the mercy of her actions. I remember sitting in my room, staring at my phone, wondering if the silence meant the end, and feeling a helpless frustration that weighed heavily on my chest. Then I remembered the words of Marcus Aurelius, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." I realized that the silence itself wasn't a punishment, it was an opportunity. Instead of letting it diminish me, I chose to see it as a space to reclaim my strength. Every day that passed without her reaching out became a test of patience, resilience, and self-control. I stopped chasing and started focusing on my life, my purpose, and my growth. Slowly, the power shifted. What once felt like emptiness became a source of strength. Now think about yourself. Have you ever felt trapped or weak because someone else's actions or inactions controlled your emotions? Imagine flipping the script, viewing silence as your chance to rise above attachment. When you do, you discover that patience, calmness, and self-mastery are more magnetic than any message ever could be. 7. Practice compassion, not resentment. When she stopped contacting me, I won't lie, I felt hurt and even a little anger. How could someone I cared for just disappear without explanation? My mind was filled with resentment, imagining scenarios where she had moved on or forgotten everything we shared. I felt powerless and misunderstood. Then I remembered the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself, what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? I realized that her silence was not an attack on me. It was a reflection of her own struggles, fears, or circumstances. Holding on to anger only made my heart heavy and trapped me in suffering. I made a conscious choice to replace resentment with compassion. I reminded myself that everyone acts according to their nature, and her choices didn't define my worth. Now I want you to pause and reflect. Have you ever clung to anger towards someone you love, letting it poison your heart? Imagine looking at their absence and seeing them as human, flawed, and doing the best they can. When you practice compassion, the silence stops being punishment. It becomes a lesson, a path to freedom, and a chance to strengthen your heart while maintaining your dignity. 8. Remember the temporary nature of emotions. When she stopped contacting me, the first few days felt like a storm inside me. My chest ached, my thoughts ran wild, and I felt consumed by longing, fear, and sadness. I kept asking myself, will this ever end? Will I ever feel normal again? It was as if the silence had trapped me in a never-ending loop of emotional pain. Then I remembered Marcus Aurelius's teaching. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. It reminded me that emotions, no matter how intense, are temporary. Even heartbreak, anxiety, or longing flows in waves. They rise, peak, and eventually recede. I began observing my emotions instead of resisting them. I allowed myself to feel the sadness, knowing it wouldn't last forever. I reminded myself that silence didn't define my life. It was a passing moment. Now reflect on your own heart. Have you ever believed that pain or longing would last forever? Imagine standing still and watching your feelings pass like clouds across the sky. When you remember that all emotions are temporary, the silence loses its grip, and you find calm, resilience, and a renewed capacity to live fully in the present and focus on what you can control. When she stopped contacting me, I felt my mind spiral into endless what-ifs. I tried to guess her thoughts, interpret her silence, and imagine every possible scenario, none of which I could control. The more I fixated on her actions, the smaller and more powerless I felt. Then I remembered Marcus Aurelius's wisdom. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That was the turning point. I realized the only thing truly in my control was myself, my thoughts, my reactions, and the way I spent my time. I began focusing on what I could influence. I set goals for my personal growth, invested time in hobbies I loved, and nurtured friendships that brought joy and support. Slowly, I felt a sense of calm and strength returning. My happiness no longer depended on her response. It depended on my actions, choices, and mindset. Now, I want you to reflect. How much of your pain comes from trying to control what you cannot? Imagine redirecting that energy inward toward growth, purpose, and self-mastery. When you focus on what you can control, silence stops, feeling like a punishment. It becomes an opportunity to strengthen your mind, reclaim your power, and build a life that no absence can shake. Real game begins the moment contact stops. Silence is not rejection. It's your opportunity to grow, reflect, and become stronger, calmer, and more resilient than ever before. By following Marcus Aurelius' wisdom, you turn absence into a path of self-discovery and inner power. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.